What is up, everybody? This is Lyle with No Hippie Barbecue, and a few days ago I did a video on East Carolina BBQ ribs, and in that video I did a Carolina mop sauce that was a recipe that I got off of AmazingRibs.com. One thing I'm going to tell you is when I first saw this recipe online, I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was, so I was actually surprised by how good it tasted on those ribs. Now, I made it according to the specific ingredients that I saw on AmazingRibs.com the first time I did that recipe. Few things I'd like to change up, so what I'm going to do now is make a few changes. In the description below, I am going to leave the original recipe and just tell you a couple things that I'm changing to do this East Carolina BBQ sauce. So let's take a look at these ingredients and get whipping it up. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I am going to have the recipe in the description below, but let's go ahead and get making this. So our first ingredient is going to be 1.5 cups of distilled vinegar. Now, the website suggested that you use this. They tried it making this recipe with apple cider vinegar and they didn't like it as much. So we have 1.5 cups of vinegar. We're going to be adding 1 teaspoon of hot sauce. The first time I did this, I used some Texas Pete. I'm not a fan of those Texas Pete or Louisiana hot sauces, so I'm using something that's a little let's just say it's actually hot. This hot sauce that I'm using is called Multiple Personalities. It's a habanero hot sauce, so we're going to add roughly a teaspoon of that, maybe a little bit more. Can never go wrong with a little heat. We're going to be adding 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now this could be white sugar or brown sugar. I'm always going to prefer the brown sugar in that. So let's go ahead and add that. We have 1 tablespoon of salt. This happens to be kosher salt. And 2 teaspoons of crushed red pepper. Now I'm going to add a little bit more than 2 teaspoons. This here is probably about 5 or 6 teaspoons, but I'm just going to go ahead and add about half of that. And then we have our black pepper, and this is 2 teaspoons of black pepper. And really all that you're going to do is mix this up. And they're suggesting that you let this sit in the refrigerator for a minimum of 12 hours up to a week. I'm going to go ahead and let this sit probably for about 4 days. I'm going to be doing some pork butt. We're going to go ahead and add it to that. Anyway, one thing I did learn from making this last time is that this sauce doesn't really look like it's amounting to much right now, but once this has a chance to kind of combine in the refrigerator, it like turns into a really nice looking sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a mason jar. We're just going to go ahead and let it sit in the refrigerator for 4 or 5 days before we break it out. Guys, so this has been in my refrigerator for about a week, a couple days longer than what I had anticipated, and it's developed a nice real red color. I mean, when you swirl it around, it definitely looks like it has a little bit more depth than what it originally started out at. So let's go ahead and jar this up. I'm going to just pour the majority of this in a smaller mason jar. Then we'll go ahead and taste this up. Now that you have this sauce made up, there's a couple different things you can do. You can go ahead and cook this on some ribs, mop them down every now and then, or you can actually add to about this amount, maybe a half to 3/4 of a stick of butter if you want something along those lines. I'll probably just keep it thinned out like this. I'm probably going to go ahead and rock this on maybe some chicken or something like that. I'm really not sure yet, but I want to taste this and see if it's any different than when I just had it. I think the last time I made this, I only had it sitting overnight, so it really didn't have a chance to come together like this. Let me tell you, this is a lot hotter than the previous version I made, so I'm glad I actually added that additional red peppers. If you don't like hot food, don't do that. And it just seems like a little bit more, I can't really tell, balanced. It might be a little bit sweeter than the last one I had. Anyway, I did this on some ribs. Like I said, that video is going to be in the iCard above just so you can take a look at those. But I'm becoming a fan of something simple like this, and I can't wait to use this in my next recipe, no matter what it is. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for stopping by No Hippie BBQ. I appreciate it. Comment, subscribe, and I'm out.